Welcome back to our channel 217 Prince White. The chapter begins. In the vast reaches of the cosmos, beyond time and mortal comprehension, they stood colossal, godlike silhouettes that shimmered in starlight and divine flame. The outer gods, beings ancient and unknowable, peered down from the heavens, cloaked in celestial majesty. Since ancient times, these divine entities had brought forth countless universes. They were called the Absolutes, creators of everything that ever existed, endlessly repeating the cycle of creation, indulging in its rhythm, chasing a twisted eternity. In their infinite power and boredom, the Absolutes began to seek new forms of entertainment. In the very process of birthing worlds, new laws, new souls, and new matter emerged, and with them came chaos. But to the Absolutes, it was an art form. To cure their boredom, they devised a new diversion: war. A cosmic battlefield forged not for justice, not for conquest, but for amusement. Their creations were pitted against one another in a grand spectacle. They watched with delight as empires fell and champions clashed. Like a game of chess played on a universal scale, the Absolutes took pleasure in observing the destruction they orchestrated. To them, the war was not tragedy, it was entertainment. The suffering, the sacrifice, all of it was merely a play. But then, something happened. Among their endless creations, one world broke the cycle. An Absolute was slain, murdered by the very beings they had crafted. The divine blood spilled across dimensions, shaking the heavens. One of their own, fallen by the hands of lesser beings. Other Absolutes from distant realms turned their gaze toward this rebellious world, intrigued by the death of a kindred. But rather than mourning, their attention shifted to something far more primal. The power left behind. The divine spark that once belonged to a god now lay without a master. To the Absolutes, this was not a loss, it was an opportunity. That unclaimed power would belong to whoever seized it first, and thus, the universe held its breath as the curtain lifted on a new chapter. Ragnarok had begun. Far from the stars, back on Earth, a bright schoolyard filled with chatter and laughter painted a striking contrast to the cosmic horrors above. Suho stood among his classmates, dressed in uniform, his face beaming with pride. "I got accepted to the Hanguk Art University," he said, with a quiet, earnest smile. A stunned silence followed, before it erupted into disbelief. "No way. How can someone like you get accepted there? I think I should retake my exam." Laughter rang out through the hallway as students celebrated their freedom. "Finally, I'm freed from this hell. Congratulations, Suho. You really got accepted there? You really didn't seem like the type," another classmate admitted. "How long has it been since you started drawing?" Then came a voice, colder, more direct. Lee Yunchul, a towering figure, his presence looming. "Kim Songchul, what is it again this time?" "I'm not Kim Songchul. I'm Lee Yunchul." A tense pause. "Thanks to you, my plan to dominate this school has been ruined." "Yeah," Soho quipped. "Thanks to me, you can graduate safely." Across the classroom, murmurs spread. "Lee Yunchul is making a fuss again this time. Why is he doing this right before our graduation? Why does he keep bullying someone who's trying to be positive, even after losing both of his parents?" The question hung in the air like a knife. Then came a shout, raw, furious. "Suho!" Yunchul charged with fury, his fist flying. But Suho stood still, unflinching. In the blink of an eye, everything changed. In a blur, Soho moved. Effortlessly, elegantly, he stepped into the attack and threw a knee of his own, striking Yunchul's face. The force rippled through his body, sending shock through his veins. Suho staggered backward, wide-eyed. "What the? You?" A deep crackle of energy pulsed from Yunchul's body. Something was different. Something had awakened. Yunchul's lips curled into a snarl, his aura flaring with malicious energy. "Your strike is nothing." With eyes glowing red, Yunchul lunged forward, a monstrous blow powered by brute strength and rage. Suho was down, seated against a locker, silent and unreadable. Huh. Even Yunchul didn't understand what had just happened. The classroom fell into eerie quiet. Suho, unmoved, simply stared back, his calm expression sharper than any insult. 2 years later, a new era, a new city. The buildings stretched high with gleaming windows, neon signage, and shadows of a world that had changed forever. Through the bustling college campus walked a familiar figure, Suho, now a second-year college student. His pace was steady, his gaze focused, his face bearing quiet maturity. Sunlight filtered through cherry blossoms. Laughter and footsteps echoed around him. Suho moved among the crowd, unnoticed, steady. A voice rang out through the intercom. "Every class in the main building will get moved to the side building, so please go there." But then came the urgent call: hunters have entered the gate to raid. Everyone, keep out. People turned. A ripple of unease spread through the campus. An officer asks his colleague, "How long has it been since the hunters went in?" Another replied, "It's already been 8 hours." Looking at the situation, because it's D-grade, they should finish it in a while. But the unease lingered. "Inwell, step back if you're not a hunter. It's dangerous." Worried voices filled the air. "Will our college be okay?" "There's a gate right next to it." Suho looked toward the source of the disturbance, his eyes narrowing. Another gate again, his thoughts drifted. 3 years ago, the world changed. Gates began appearing across the planet, portals to other dimensions, linking Earth to violent, deadly dungeons. When these gates opened, monsters poured out, nightmarish creatures hell-bent on destruction. Cities fell. People died. But humanity changed in response. Some evolved. They awakened. Those who developed powers, mystical, magical, unimaginable, became known as hunters. The phenomenon was called awakening. But amid that chaos, one man rose, Wu Jinchul. He created the Hunter Association, a force to bring order to madness. Thanks to him, hunting monsters became a profession. A brutal one, but necessary. Suho sat quietly in an art class, brush in hand. The world had split in two now, the awakened and the non-awakened. And in that system, the difference was life and death. He dipped his brush, focusing on the fine details. If someone has to move like an ant to earn rewards, he thought, someone else might suddenly have rewards placed in their hands. In a system like that, the ant bitterly realizes his limits. And Suho had begun to feel those limits creeping in. No matter how hard the non-awakened strive, the truth is relentless. They will never bridge the gap, not even with an E-rank awakened. The distance between the gifted and the ordinary is a chasm deeper than effort can fill. The world has made one thing brutally clear. If hunters don't stop the gates, everything will be reduced to ashes. The planet teeters on the edge, and those without power merely cling to its trembling surface. In truth, the non-awakened cannot survive without the awakened. But the awakened, they could go on without us. And so, Suho is grateful. Grateful to the hunters who stand between this world and ruin. Thanks to them, he and those like him live in relative peace. Yet, that peace is uneasy. There's a shadow in his heart that gratitude can't erase. He wonders, if he had power, would that feeling disappear? Moments of reflection cloud his thoughts. Am I getting used to not having anything? He asks himself silently, staring off into the void. He thinks of his parents, now only memories, and the strange, hollow numbness left in their absence. There was a time when he dreamed of soaring, when he believed that anything was within reach. But those dreams, once vivid, have collapsed into helplessness. In their place is a void that doesn't ask, it swallows. His mother used to say he looked just like his father. So how would his father have faced this despair? A voice shatters the stillness. Suho. The trance breaks. His eyes snap open to find himself in the studio, in front of his easel, startled. His art instructor's voice is calm but firm, dragging him back to reality. "You're really focused today?" the instructor remarks, eyes glancing down at the canvas. Suho blinks, surprised by his own hand. "Oh, my hand seemed to be moving on its own." Curious, the instructor steps closer. "What are you drawing so attentively?" There on the canvas is something grotesque, something not quite insect, not quite human. Is it an ant? That's quite a creative way to draw an ant. Suho stares at his own creation, confused. Why did I even draw this? He doesn't know the answer. Darkness. Suddenly, a monstrous silhouette looms. In this art, somewhere the gate bursts open. Light spills forth. The tension in the air cracks. A cheer erupts. Someone shouts. The hunters are coming out. Woo. It's a really relaxed atmosphere. Looks like the subjugation was successful. The elite team emerges from the gate, calm, collected, victorious. Clad in sleek armor, weapons at ease, they wear confidence like a second skin. Great job, Hunter Kim Jong-soo, an official says, approaching with a clipboard. The dungeon subjugation was successful. But there's something we need to report to the Hunter Association. Jong-soo's face darkens. We encountered a new type of beast. He pauses as the image burns in his mind. It was humanoid, but it spewed blue flames from its eyes and mouth. It clawed and bit at us, but it wasn't particularly strong. He lifts his shirt slightly, showing a small scratch. I got a bit nicked by its claws, but I'm fine. Seems like it was just a minor beast. But the glow from the wound says otherwise. His subordinate nods. I'm glad it wasn't a dangerous one. Then, Mr. Hunter, please write a brief report on this subjugation. But as Jong-soo lowers his hand, something pulses beneath his skin. A bolt of energy crackles violently from the injury. In the next moment, his body twists violently. With a hideous transformation, his flesh warps and his claws extend. His hand, once human, rips through another, spraying blood across the pavement as screams explode around them. His eyes widen in horror. The glow spreads, surging with unnatural force. Hunter Kim Jong-soo. Are you all right? He doesn't answer. Because the thing inside him does. Eyes glowing, jaws split unnaturally wide, something feral tears free. Chaos erupts once again. Kim Jong-soo kills one of them officials. A hunter murmurs. That blue flame, it's from the beast in the dungeon. The courtyard erupts into panic as chaos seizes the moment. People scatter in every direction, shrieking in terror. Panic sweeps through the street. People leap to their feet, fleeing in every direction, desperate to escape. The road becomes a blur of chaos. A student yells out in confusion, his voice sharp and urgent. What's going on? Another student peers out the window and gasps. What is that? Below, they watch the courtyard dissolve into madness. People are attacking each other. One shouts in disbelief. The infected clash with others, once fellow humans, now consumed by an uncontrollable rage. Their eyes blaze with unnatural blue fire. Those eyes, it looks just like a beast. Another student recoils, horror etched across their face. Could it be a dungeon break? Down on the ground, a survivor shouts to the crowd, "What are you doing? Let's all run away." But panic breeds indecision. Someone else hesitates, urging, "No, we should just wait here for the hunters." In the art room, Suho and his classmates turn to their instructor. "Art instructor Lim, you're an awakened. Do something about it." A grim reply follows. "No, I'm just an earache." A chill settles into Suho's bones. He looks out the window and sees it, an infected stumbling forward, arms twitching, shoulders flaring with ghostly flame. Its body jolts unnaturally, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. It raises its head and charges. The horror is now at the threshold. "Run!" Someone yells. Screams echo as the monster crashes through the classroom glass. Students fall over one another trying to escape. Desks flip, books fly, windows shatter. Hurrah! The infected roars, eyes glowing, face distorted beyond recognition. Children scream. More and more students pour toward the stairwell. Everyone. Run away. But a girl in room. "My legs. They don't have strength." He watches the infected crawl closer, its mouth wide, flames dancing across its face. "Help me." The girl whimpers, shaking as she pleads. But fear paralyzes her all. Asuho breaks away. "I'll call a hunter." The girl watches him run, her eyes filled with dread. Suho thinks himself, "Damn it. What do you mean calling a hunter? It's practically the same as telling her to die." His mind races. But as a non-awakened person, what can I do? He clenches his fists, frustration and terror entwined. Damn non-awakened. Blaming the situation helplessly won't change anything. Find what you can do, Suho. His thoughts drift to his father. The towering shadow of Jinwoo, heroic and calm. If it were Dad, what would he do in a situation like this? As Suho looks within, his silhouette reflects against a bright horizon. Somewhere between fear and resolve, something begins to stir. The light of memory flickered in Suho's eyes. A silhouette burned into his mind, the back of the one he could never forget, the shadow of his father who once walked a path of unrelenting resolve. His eyes widened, a moment of clarity piercing through the chaos. Something within him stirred, not fear, not hesitation, but determination. A low growl of energy surged in the distance. The corrupted beast, its body cloaked in flickering blue flame, took a single thunderous step forward, cracking the tiles beneath its feet. The infected hunter's eyes flared brighter, fixating on his next prey, a trembling student, frozen in fear, trapped between instinct and paralysis. The student screamed, stumbling back, yet unable to flee. But there was no mercy in the infected beast's stride. The possessed man roared, unleashing a frenzied assault. Lightning-edged claws slashed through the air. The crowd scattered. Blood sprayed. One of the students fell hard. The screams echoed across the hallway. And still, the infected surged forward. But in that final moment, when all seemed to fall into shadow, Suho moved. Eyes burning with resolve, heart thundering like a war drum, he launched himself into the fray. If it were Dad, he'd definitely. The words crashed through his chest like a storm. He wouldn't freeze. He wouldn't run. He would stand. Suddenly, the world shuddered. A sharp, screeching distortion erupted all around him. A mysterious notification blazed in golden light. warping through reality as if pulled from the very fabric of the system his father once commanded. Notification: you have met the summoning requirements. The transfer is beginning. The sound of digital sparks tore through the air. The system had chosen him. And from the abyss of awakening, a new legend was born. I once had a dream. A strange dream. One that didn't feel like a nightmare, nor like a fantasy. It felt like a game. A game where the rules were cruel and the stakes were always life or death. In this dream, I stood alone, a boy amidst chaos. My body was covered in wounds, clothes torn, my fists clenched with defiance. The world around me seethed with monsters, twisted shadows with snarling teeth, claws sharp enough to tear through steel. I remember thinking, somehow, it's a bit exciting. Each encounter forced me to grow stronger. My enemies didn't weaken. I had to rise to meet them. One by one, they came, each more relentless than the last. And with every fight, I felt something inside me awaken. I leveled up, defeated enemies that towered over me, monsters that struck like thunder. Their blows were brutal, but my will never broke. There was no room to retreat. No need for anyone else to save me. Because a mark was on his title, and it said, "The hero fights alone." Fighting, over and over again. I never stopped. And with each clash, a glowing notice would appear before me. Notification: your level has increased. It was as though fate itself was watching me, measuring my worth through endless battle. The monsters evolved, faster, stronger, smarter. And in response, so did I. I trained my body and sharpened my mind. I learned when to strike, when to dodge, when to risk everything in one final blow. After countless challenges, rising from blood-soaked arenas and charred battlefields, I finally reached the final level. And what waited for me there wasn't a beast. It wasn't a mindless enemy or an ancient god. No, the final boss was unlike any I'd faced before. His strength was staggering. His presence suffocating. The aura around him felt like a storm condensed into a man. His movements were precise, his power monstrous. And though he was my enemy, I couldn't help but admire him. This wasn't just a foe. He was a warrior, worthy of respect. But then came the moment. The face beneath the shadows came into view. And what I saw made my heart stop. Dad? I didn't understand at first. Why would my father, my real, flesh-and-blood father, appear as the enemy at the end of this dream? It made no sense. Yet, deep down, I knew. I think the image I had of him, my idea of a powerful, unstoppable, protective figure, was projected into the dream itself. He was always the one I admired most. A strong and dependable dad. And now, in this dream, he stood as the symbol of everything I needed to overcome. How could Dad become such a strong person? That question lingered in my mind as reality bled back in. My gaze drifted to a fire extinguisher, something ordinary, something real. But even that, in my hands, would become a weapon, because now I was awake, and the battle wasn't over. Suho's heart thundered in his chest as he sprinted across the ruined classroom, gripping the fire extinguisher like a weapon forged from desperation itself. His eyes sharpened with raw determination. He would have done something like this too. Right, Dad. The boy's figure crashed forward, unafraid. The demon beast snarled as the extinguisher struck its side, staggering it for just a second. But a second was all he needed. In the chaos of the moment, none of the students moved. Only Suho dared to stand against the monster. But reality caught up to him quickly. His grip trembled. What should I do now? A pulse of doubt echoed through his mind. He remembered something. Whispers from TV news, hunters' forums, rumors etched into fear itself. Normal people can't hurt demonic beasts without magic. Attacks from the powerless don't work. Still breathing heavily, Suho clenched his jaw. I rushed in without a plan. And yet, something shifted. Suddenly, the air around him twisted. A jolt ran through his body as his vision blurred. He blinked, and then realized nothing moved. Not the monster. Not the girl watching in terror. Time itself had stopped. What is this? The world felt frozen, like a paused video frame. But Suho remained awake in it, alive within this quiet stillness. Has time actually stopped? A golden notification blinked to life before him, elegant and ornate like a system message in a game. Notification: secret quest. Courage of the powerless, conditions met. His breath caught. The air felt sacred now. Then came another message, this one heavier, reverberating with an otherworldly gravity. You have earned the right to become a player. Do you accept it? Suho stared at the shimmering panel in disbelief, heart pounding in his ears. His mind reeled back to the dream. The battles. The system. The final level. Dad. This situation. The memory of that vision. The feeling of strength and growth flashed across his mind like lightning. A vision of monsters lunging toward him, of blade and shadow and light. This is just like that dream. The choice hung in the air like a blade above his head. If I can become like that, if I can become someone strong in this desperate moment, his fists clenched, his back straightened. Is there any reason not to accept? With unwavering resolve, Suho's lips moved. I accept. And in that instant, light exploded. A divine surge tore through the air, golden notifications cascading in brilliant flashes. Congratulations on becoming a player. Secret quest reward. Courage of the powerless. Blessing. Grand Archmage Candiaru's blessing. The text scrolled before his eyes, as if the system itself was celebrating his resolve. Grand Archmage Candiaru has gifted you a special spell. As long as Candiaru's blessing is with you, you will always. More messages unfurled like the first rays of dawn through a darkened sky. Quest reward. Continuous effect awakening. You become immune to all poisons, toxins, and abnormal status. And your regenerative abilities will increase exponentially during sleep. The system supports the growth of the players. This is not a dream. Please note that you only have one life. The final panel appeared, his stats, his starting point as a new player in a very real world. Name, Sung Suho. Level, 1. Class, none. Fatigue, 0. HP, 100. MP, 10. Strength, 10. Agility, 10. Stamina, 10. Intelligence, 10. Perception, 10. Distributable points, 0. Skills. Passive, none. Active, power of the ruler level 1. In that moment, the boy who had rushed in recklessly had become something more. A spark had been lit, and the game had just begun. A thunderous shock rippled through the room. The demonic beast was flung into the air with a single, precise strike. And there, standing in the aftermath of the blow, was Suho, frozen in disbelief, his eyes wide with the realization of what he had just done. And then, new text illuminated before his eyes. Notification, a quest has appeared. Quest, tutorial, defeat the mist burns to level up, achieve level 2. The system was real. And he was part of it now. With eyes glowing faintly and breath steady, he stepped forward, standing between the girl and the next monster. The creature towered over him. Behind him, the girl's voice trembled. Time is moving again. He glanced over his shoulder. Run quickly. Okay, she gasped, bolting for the hallway. He turned back to the enemy, his mind sharper than ever before. Those name tags above their heads. They weren't just random threats anymore. The system was identifying them, labeling the enemies with clarity. Non-awakened Mistburn, D-rank awakened Mistburn. The enemies are 2 non-awakened civilians and 1 hunter-level beast. And if those tags were real, if this world had truly become like his dream, then I have really awakened. Suho's eyes gleamed, a vivid, electric blue piercing through the darkness. The pressure in his limbs felt different now. Strength coiled within his muscles, waiting to be unleashed. There was no time for hesitation. He charged forward once again. The fire extinguisher swung like a blade, smashing straight into the awakened beast's chest with explosive force. Clang, metal met flesh, and the creature staggered. In the chaos, another extinguisher came flying past, hurled by another desperate student trying to help. Suho caught it midair, barely missing a step. And then, with fire in his veins and the wind at his back, Suho sprinted in. The hunt had begun. Suho gritted his teeth, lunging to the side as the awakened Mistburn's claws slashed through the air with terrifying speed. Sparks flew as they raked across a metal desk, barely missing him. Notification, you have defeated a non-awakened Mistburn. Notification, your level has increased. Another wave of golden light enveloped him. Strength surged through his limbs. Notification, you have completed the quest Tutorial. Quest notice. Defeat the mist burns to level up. Achieved level 2. More windows appeared in rapid succession. Notification. Mini quest completion reward has arrived. Notification. Would you like to check your reward? Suho barely had time to register them. His lips curled into a slight grin. This confirms it. I've really awakened. His voice roared from within as he launched himself at the awakened mist burn with renewed force. His attack landed clean and brutal, slamming into the creature's side. But then, it stood back up. Steam hissed from its body. Its eyes glowed with renewed fury. Suho's face shifted from resolve to shock. It withstood. This one wasn't going to fall easily. Before he could recover, a bladed limb slashed out, lightning fast. Suho tried to block, but the blow connected with brutal force, sending him crashing across the room. His body skidded, slammed, then rolled across desks and broken tiles. The pain was real. The danger, undeniable. But so was his will. The battle was far from over. Damn it, his thoughts raced. Every move could be his last. If I get injured by it, I'll turn into a beast. The reality of his situation hit hard. He had just awakened, yet now he stood toe-to-toe with a creature that was born for slaughter. One scratch could mean the end of his humanity. But before panic could take root, the system chimed once more. Notification. An abnormal status has been detected in your soul. Notification. The abnormal status has been removed due to the effect of longevity. His eyes widened. Longevity. The word echoed in his mind. Familiar. Come to think of it, I saw that in the status window earlier. It wasn't just a title. It was a shield, protecting him from the corruption that claimed others. That meant he didn't need to fear infection, not now. Then, the impact shook the ground as the awakened mist burn drove Suho into the shattered classroom floor, the tiles beneath him splintering under the sheer force. Gritting his teeth, Suho coughed through the pain. Blood trickled from his mouth as he stared up at the monster pinning him down. Being weaker than a D-rank beast, that makes me an E-rank, right? The thought burned in his mind. I've finally become an awakened, but now I have to worry about ranks too. The mist burn roared above him, an unrelenting wall of muscle and flame. But Suho's eyes didn't waver. There must be something I can do. Then he remembered. The reward. Oh, he breathed out, realization sparking. Accept reward. The moment the words left his lips, a warm light enveloped his body once more. Quest reward notice. The following rewards are available. Reward 1. Distributable points +5. Reward 2. Strength stat +3. A pulse surged through him. Strength, 1114. A growl rose in his throat as power returned to his limbs. With renewed vigor, Suho hurled the monster off him and let out a fierce, defiant roar. The classroom trembled as he launched himself forward, his body a blur of raw strength. Bang! Debris raining down around them. But the mist burn wasn't done yet. It rose again, eyes flaring. They collided. A furious back and forth erupted, fists and claws clashing with bone-shattering force. Suho struck with everything he had, the fire extinguisher now forgotten, his fists the only weapons he needed. But even with the sudden spike in power, it wasn't enough. Even with this much of an increase in strength, I still can't defeat it. Suho's breathing grew heavy. His thoughts raced. Then I'll just put all the points I got from the reward into strength, 1419. His knuckles crackled with energy, blue flames trailing behind each motion. He surged forward again. A devastating blow crashed into the mist burn's gut, but the monster still wouldn't fall. I've never heard of an awakened who levels up like this before. Most were born into their power. Their rank, their limits, set from the moment of awakening. But Suho, he was rewriting the rules. The moment you awaken, your rank is determined. No awakened has ever surpassed their rank. But I'm getting stronger right now. Blow after blow landed. Sparks lit the air. I don't know who decides these ranks, or who labels people as non-awakened or hunters, but if I've gained the power to break free from that cursed system, his fist lit up with glowing defiance. Then, in a blur of motion, Suho exploded forward, shattering the floor beneath his feet as he launched like a bullet through the air. Debris rained around him as he smashed straight into the awakened mist burn with a force like a meteor. Concrete cracked. Glass exploded outward. And in the wake of it all, silence. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then came the sound of breathing, heavy, labored, but alive. Suho stumbled from the cratered wall, chest heaving, the remnants of power still crackling around his limbs. Then he struck. Suho stared at his hand, glowing faintly with residual power. His fingers trembled, not from fear, but from realization. So now, I've finally become an awakened too. He tightened his fist, his gaze stealing. The fear was gone. In its place stood resolve. His eyes narrowed, then flicked toward the system prompt materializing in golden light. Notification: you have defeated a D-rank awakened Mistburn. Notification: your level has increased. Title level has increased. Soho's fist dropped to his side. Exhaustion pulled at every muscle, but a smile touched the edge of his lips. He fell to his knees, gazing out through the gaping hole he had just blasted into the building. I won. Outside, the chaos had only just begun. The earth cracked beneath another monstrous impact. The street trembled, dust clouds rising as citizens screamed and scattered. Soho, still catching his breath from his own hard-won victory, turned toward the shattered window. Soho stepped closer to the window, gripping the frame tightly. The situation outside, just as he thought, he stood frozen. Huh. His words trailed off as his gaze lifted higher and met the eyes of a true nightmare. His eyes widened. A towering shadow leaped through the air, arcs of corrupted mana dancing like lightning across its limbs. Its body was massive, far larger, faster, and far more brutal than anything he had faced inside. C-rank awakened Mistburn, the beast descended from above like a demon from the heavens, black smoke trailing its figure, its eyes glowing with pure malice. It wasn't just strong. It was overwhelming. The force of its landing shook the entire building. A single blow from its landing shattered several floors of the building, reducing stone to powder in an instant. Just as he thought the battle was over, a far greater war had only just begun. Chapter end here. For more, like, share, and subscribe.